training in which we are going to talk about the State Budget Act and the State Budget Manual. Our budget execution team lead, Sarah Grimsrud, is going to lead us through this section. Take it away, Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Dana, for that kind introduction. And welcome. We are in the final stretch of Budget 101. Thank you for hanging in with us today. I know that sometimes the afternoon sessions can feel like a crawl, but I'm going to do my best to make this last section or second to last section as exciting as possible. Starting with your state budget authority resources that you should have on your desk, saved as a favorite on your desktop, or in any other way enshrined as a budget professional for the state of North Carolina, are three basic resources. The first being the State Budget Act, General Statute 143C. For OSBM and the state budget as a whole, this is where it all starts. This is where the magic happens. And it's the foundation of pretty much everything we do in the state budget office. The second resource available to you that I highly recommend bookmarking, putting as a favorite on your web page is the State Budget Manual. This provides the guidance of how OSBM interprets the provisions of the State Budget Act, as well as other statutes that have budgetary implications. The last resource, or one of the last primary resource available to you as you're conducting your budget work from here on out is the OSBM analysts on both the budget execution and budget development teams here at OSBM. For any development related questions such as change budget, certification, some of the performance management and evidence-based budgeting questions that OSBM has focused more on in more recent history, you're going to want to reach out to your budget development analyst here at OSBM. For any questions related to base budget, budget revisions, allotments, or compliance monitoring, troubleshooting following certification of the budget, reach out to your budget execution analyst who would be happy to assist you in working out any problems that you might have. And just as a quick side note for the two slides that appear here, the links to the State Budget Act and the OSBM website for the budget manual are live. And so if you were so inclined, you could go ahead and click on those and save them to your favorites bar on your preferred web browser. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more about the State Budget Act and how it relates to some of the information we've already presented today in this afternoon session. 143C, the State Budget Act, is divided into 10 separate articles. As you can see on this slide, the highlighted articles are what we've kind of covered today in our information thus far. And most of what OSBM has discussed today in our training or will discuss in subsequent training starts with the State Budget Act. So again, I can't emphasize enough what an important resource it is to you as a budget and or finance professional in the state of North Carolina to know Chapter 143C. Next slide, please. As far as the State Budget Manual and its resource available to you, our website version is the most current. As you can see from the table of contents, it's divided into 10 sections. The important takeaway that I want you to take from this training today is that the State Budget Manual is really OSBM's interpretation of the provisions of 143C and other legislation that guides state agency operations. It's important to remember that the State Budget Manual is a policy interpretation of the law and not the law itself. So while OSBM does not have authority to grant exceptions to general statute or session law, we do have some flexibility in limited circumstances as the need arises to provide exceptions to the policies in the state budget manual to meet the operational needs of the agencies we serve. And if you ever find yourself in the administration of your agency's budget needing some flexibility with the state budget manual, please reach out to your OSBM budget execution analyst who can work through the problem you're facing. Maybe you don't need an exception to the state budget manual because another section of the state budget manual speaks to the problem you're trying to solve. But again, we can grant exceptions to state budget manual sections. We cannot grant exceptions to general statute and or session law. Next slide, please. So here is just a screenshot of the way to navigate to the budget manual on the OSBM website. You have, if you go to www.osbm.nc.gov, you'll be directed, you'll see on that blue, oops, sorry, there, thank you. The blue navigation bar at the top of the website, and you click on budget, and there you'll find a number of resources related to any and all things budget. As you can see here, specifically, we're trying to navigate to the state budget manual. But you also can, if you're wondering or want to look up again an old budget memo that's been provided by OSBM with respect to any number of topics related to closeout, carry forward, how to implement provisions of any federal, more recently federal COVID legislation, do a refresher on NC-IBIS training that you may have experienced in the past. This is the one-stop shop for all things budget on our OSBM website. Next slide, please. So now we're really getting into kind of everything we've learned today, demonstrating how it directly relates to either the State Budget Act or the State Budget Manual. I don't know how many of you remember this slide or can pull up this slide. The flow chart you see here that sets out the timeline for the various elements of budget development, if you're referring back to slide 19, is directly related to both provisions that you will become familiar with in the State Budget Act and the State Budget Manual. Next. Surprise. And just as a reminder, it's all, again, it all goes back to the State Budget Act 143C. This flow chart was directly developed out of the guidance that appears in Articles 3 through 5 of the State Budget Act, as well as specific instructions and policy related to budget development in Chapter 2 of the State Budget Manual. Many of you receive the budget instructions when we're issuing or launching the budget process, both for the biennial and short session budget. So you'll get additional guidance from some of those, as well as job aids that contain the technical how-tos, so to speak, of how to do budget development. But again, it all goes back to 143C and the State Budget Manual. Next slide.